Okay, in Sheffield for the under 20, under 17, under 15 age group championships, and we've got a couple of guys competing and girls over the next couple of days. So let's head over to the track and see how they get on. Okay, the first competition on the Saturday was the under 20 triple jump, and both Toby and Mikey had been jumping particularly well as they'd got first and second in the South of England Championships the previous week, with 14.10 and 14.37 respectively. So we had some expectation for the under 20s nationals. Toby opened with a run through. He was one of the few using the 13-metre board. Mikey was jumping off of his full run up of 17 steps and using the 11-metre board, and his first jump was in the 14.30s. After chatting with Toby, we decided to go for an easy jump in the second round to get one in, and it was probably better than he expected as it was 14 metres 40. This was a new PB, and it says a lot for being relaxed when you're competing. Into the third round, and Toby ran through. Mikey was getting more confident with his run up and coming in at greater speed, although there's more speed to use, and this one went out to 14 metres 50. You can see the greater attack on this jump, and indeed it looked a lot longer. However, unfortunately, he dropped to his left slightly on landing, otherwise the jump would have been in the high 14-metre range. Toby ran through on this particular effort. If this happens to you, you've got to complete your jump. You've got to think about the process. You've got to get the rhythm, the distribution of the phases correct, and don't try too hard, as I've been saying previously. You could also perhaps just focus on one thing, i.e. the hop takeoff. If this is done correctly, it will set up the rest of the jump. So, on that subject, in a recent video, I talked about setting up the takeoff for the triple jump with a penultimate step, a lowering of the centre of mass. Now, Mikey does do this, and we are working more on that in order to get him to transfer comfortably into the hop takeoff. There was rotation into the landing too on this jump, which would also have been a long one. Let's have a closer look at Mikey's technique. He needs to hold his free thigh away from him more in the hop as it moves straight down underneath him. However, the step and transition into the jump phase are pretty strong, and the arms are used purposefully to add to forward propulsion. On this effort, the final round, Mikey collapsed going into the jump phase and obviously lost a lot of momentum. You can see there's more knee bend than usual, and the jump doesn't travel on. Toby finished with 14 metres 13. We need to get more control over the phases, and the ability needs to be developed to hold them as he travels from one to the other. In the step phase, you can see that Toby didn't really drive his free leg forwards, and this is going to lose a lot of momentum going into the jump phase. The competition was won by Archie Yale with a jump of 14 metres 71. But I was pleased with the performance of our team with third and fourth places. Mikey has one more competition to go this indoor season, so fingers crossed he can jump that little bit further than he did in the under 20 England Nationals. After that, we will then commence a new specific phase of training where we start to build up for the outdoor season, and I'll say more about that in more videos. Next up, it was Ruby and Bryony in the under 20 women's long jump. If you've been following videos on the channel, you'll know that Ruby has been jumping particularly well recently and has jumped over 5 metres 80 in her previous competitions and upgraded her PB to 5 metres 90. We've been doing a lot of work on setting up a takeoff and keeping it tight in terms of the steps coming into the board. So we were all excited to see what she could do in the competition in Sheffield. First up from the pair of them though was Bryony. She has a best of 5.63 and this year has not quite been connecting with her jumping. However, and unfortunately, This first round effort was very good and probably would have been in excess of her personal best. She got more of an extension and drive from the board, and that's something that we've been working on recently. We'd also been working on turnover into the board, and this also showed improvement. Despite what I said about Ruby a few moments ago, she overstrode into her first jump and it resulted in a foul. She actually said that she didn't feel the same rhythm. So we went back to bring the run up in, and the aim was to get those feet down quickly as she came into the takeoff on the next effort. This she did, and she went out to 5 meters 94. There was some rotation on the landing coming into the board, so I hoped that a further jump would result. And it certainly did, because on her next effort, Ruby jumped a 19 centimeter PB, going over 6 meters for the first time with a 6.09. Bryony managed to jump of 5 meters 51, which, given the competitive nature of the competition, I think did her proud, and it would result in her ending up in 8th place in the competition. Ruby continued to jump well, and in the 6th round, she actually matched her new PB with a further jump of 6.09. Apologies about the filming for this effort. I would always like to try to watch with my own eyes rather than the camera, but you will see a great run-up and a good takeoff. However, I can still see some overstriding coming into the takeoff, and that's something that we're going to need to work on some more over the next coming months. The competition was won by Ella Rush, who responded brilliantly to Ruby's 6.09 with a 6.22, and it looks great for both girls going into the summer, as I'm sure they'll both have their eye on the 6:30 qualification distance for the World Junior Championships. So it was very much a case of a happy coach and also happy athletes, well, for the majority of them. So let's see what happened on day 2. In the under-17 long jump, Dimitri was competing. Now I see him just sporadically, and we work on his technical aspects, his running and also his technique. And we'd actually been working on developing a hitch kick, and it went particularly well. He'd already jumped 6 meters 68 this season, but he opened with 6 meters 61, and his technique and his running seemed to be getting progressively better. He needs to hold his takeoff position for a split second longer before rotating his arms and legs. A good opener always puts pressure on the competition, and I guess it also helps the jumper to relax themselves. In the 3rd round, Dimitri put together probably the longest jump of his life. Unfortunately, it was a slight foul. He actually set the jump up more on the penultimate step, and that enabled him to get greater direction from the takeoff. You can see that setting action in that still frame there, and it does, as I said, result in greater speed off of the takeoff, greater forward and vertical velocity. Dimitri continued to jump well in the remaining rounds of the competition, and rather like Ruby, he actually jumped the same distance twice. So in the final round, he also jumped 6.61. Well, I hope this insight into how our guys performed at the England Age Group Championships will give you some pointers and tips for your technique, and also help you to compete and train and learn better and optimized technique. We now head into the latter part of the indoor season, and my athletes, all 3 of them, are building up to the senior British trials. Jahisha will be doing the long jump, as will Paul, and Ruby actually got invited and will also be competing. This will be a great experience for her. So, as usual, if you've any questions on the content of this particular video, then do leave them in the comment section below or through my other social media. And good luck with your training and your competitions, and do subscribe to the channel.